Hi guys, how's it going? I got a request to make a video about how to modify the 40 caliber from FtMC, which is FDM Connect, Benson Davis's product. I don't work for him, I don't work with them, no association at all. I just have some of his products, and I wanted to modify them because I was trying to solve two different problems that I was having with this packer when I first got it. Problem number one, and I'm going to show you the one I'm actually going to modify. This was, by the way, the funnel isn't straight, so I already started to modify it a little bit before, but this was a clearance item, and so I got another one after I got the clearance item that is actually like made more correct. But this is why it was clearance. Obviously, you can see that it should be like more centered down here. Two things I was trying to fix is, one, you have to hold up even when it's in a harness, you have to hold up the back so much and really put quite a bit of pressure on it in order to get it to lay against your body in order to catch all the pee from the back and not have it drip out the back. That was problem number one. Problem number two, having legs in general, I would have to crouch down because I'm sort of I'm very small. I'm a small person, so if I would have to kind of crouch down towards the ground and like open my legs really wide as if I'm riding a horse or something in order to make this thing work. So I was getting sort of this happening, and that does not actually make the thing functional. So I needed to take off a lot of this side here. So those are the two things that I'm trying to solve by modifying this piece. Now, this is what I actually made, which does, in fact, solve that problem for me. Everybody is shaped differently, everybody's a little bit different, so I can't guarantee that this is going to work for you. I'm just showing you what I did. Solve problem number one, I gave it kind of a new shape here so that it would actually lay against my body already, and with the D-slang, which is what I'm using as a harness, it kind of just automatically pulls it up a little bit like that, so that sits right against my body, and I barely have to do anything except for pull this away from my body right here so that I get a little bit of air in there, and the air allows it to actually flow all the way out. So if I just kind of go like that, that's all I really need to do, which is nice. And the second problem, as you can see here, it's quite thin in comparison. So you see this is now even all the way up here. Like, if I keep my fingers the same distance apart from right here, I can pretty much go right up the side, and I'm not really moving my fingers at all to do that. You see that? So I went up pretty far on this one. I went up actually to the tip of my finger, down the side here, in order to make it almost flat. So if you look at it this way, it's like almost flat. And I don't know if you guys noticed, there was some paper in here that I had put. It's like a toilet paper that I put in there just to get rid of the sound. I don't know if you can hear that kind of weird sound. I hate that sound. So I actually pack with a little bit of toilet paper in there, and it gets that sound to just stop happening. Anyway, so I cut off some of the side here. I tapered right here so that it comes up nice and smooth. You can see the way that my finger moves here. It just kind of like right up. Now, the reason I did that is because it was much thicker and it stopped all the way out here. So you had all of that and it was like really thick and flat. I didn't like that because it wouldn't go more... see how nicely it goes against my hand? Before, it was chunky. Or like, even once I had all this cut out, right here there was all this pressure against my skin to get the thing to lay flat and look like it was flat. So I had to kind of taper it out a little bit right here, so that now this sits really nicely against my body, and it doesn't have the, like, I'm a prosthetic right there, like really, really obvious, you know, kind of like thing popping off of my body. So that helped. And at the back here, I just extended the funnel down about an extra 1/4 of an inch, so I do still have a little bit of flat part there. There you can see it. A little bit of this flat part here. And that flat part actually used to come out to about here. So I cut off about a 1/4 of an inch this way, and then I made it more... Yeah, I cut it down so that it just kind of tapers out a little bit more. So my funnel's a little bit longer, which was kind of something that was necessary for me, but not necessary for everybody. So I definitely, what I had to do is I actually had to try it and like put it on my body a few times, like as I was going, and see how I was doing and how much more I needed to make of like a curve and how much more I need to do here and there. So I'm going to pretty much just show you guys how to do this to this. Now, it's not going to come out perfectly just because obviously it's more like, you know, lopsided in there, but we're going to get as close as we can. I'm going to show you guys how I did it for the most part, but like I said, you're really going to have to test it on yourself as you're going and see how it's actually working out for you as you go. So don't cut too much right off the bat. That's really, really important. Go slow. The thing is, you can always make one cut bigger if you need to. So the way I do this, I have to tilt this down now. Let's get some light down here. All right. So now I'm going to, if I want to get like a nice curve right here, what I do is I put my thumb underneath it and I push up a little bit, just from a little bit below there. See that? Let me see. It's a little too much here. No, that's not working. I got really bad lighting in here. There we go. So I'm just going to push up from here, from the bottom, and make this curve, and then cut straight across it. So that makes sense. Kind of like get it right where you want it. So probably right down here, if you notice, the curve that I made is kind of right above. I started the curve right above here. The dead center, kind of. There you go. You can see it now. So I'm going to make that same cut right here. Start right about here, right? That's where I'm going to push up. That's where I'm going to add some pressure at the bottom. So at the top, it kind of makes a bubble, right? And I want to cut right across that bubble like this. You see that? So pay attention to where you're doing that, because that's where you're going to end up with a line. Now if you push up against the bottom of it, it's going to give you a curve. And the nice thing about it is it gives you kind of a tapered, you're going to have to clean it up a little bit, but it'll give you a pretty tapered curve. And see, there you're starting with your curve. Now you're going to have to do this a few times all the way down. Just add on to what you already have. It seems to work out really nicely that way. And wherever you want it to cut, you just kind of push up underneath that and just slowly stretch it as you're going. It's easier than trying to just hold it and like cut into it, because you're not going to get the right kind of curve if you do that. So right here, see I have kind of like a jagged edge there. Right there you can see the jagged part. There's a kind of jagged cut in here. Right here. It's easy to clean that up. You just push right underneath it with your thumb right next to where you're trying to cut it. Just push it up a little bit there and give it a nice, see, little cut. And then it smooths it out quite a bit. So you'll get it kind of much smoother. Now, I think it's a little bit easier to go from the outside and slowly kind of cut away like one layer at a time right here until you get pretty flush with it. That's up to you. Maybe you want to get the curve here faster. Not faster. Maybe you want to get this curve first before you do the outside curve. I think it's easier to get the outside curve, the outside kind of more flat before you do that curve. Everybody's a little bit different, but this is very much like shaping ceramics or something. I don't know if you're not good with working with your hands, just do smaller cuts and go a little bit slower so you don't end up getting a little too ahead of yourself. You don't want to cut too much off. But if you do, you can just go to a hardware store and get a tube of, it's going to be clear more than likely, but you can get a tube of silicone and it'll do okay with at least adding some weight to the back. And silicone sticks on silicone. It's not going to be the same grade. It's not going to have color to it or anything like that unless you get white. But on the upside, you can kind of at least thicken what you have done to it. So I think the most important thing to understand is you need to apply pressure to wherever you're trying to cut and apply pressure to underneath. So basically, think of it as you constantly have a center flat line, you see? Now if I see how it's dipping right where I already cut, if I wanted to cut above it and continue getting it more cut from here and another cut a little bit higher, what I would do is I would push up until I lose my flat line. See, now I'm starting to get a little bit of a bubble. That means I'm gonna only be taking off a little bit. If I keep pushing on it, I'm gonna get a higher arch. The more I push on it, the more it pops out, the more I'm gonna end up cutting off, because wherever that is, wherever it's popping out farther than the blade, that's what you're gonna be cutting off. So you don't wanna cut off too much at one time. But see, I'm already starting to get a much flatter edge. I really wish this light was better. Maybe I can get it. Okay, so see, I'm starting to get a flatter edge there. Okay, now this I'm gonna have to start working my way out this way. I'm gonna have to start working my way out this way. Like I said, do it slowly. You can always add on to what you already have. So let's see this, if I can maybe do this so you guys can see it. I'm gonna push out from the inside, pushing out. You see that happen? Push out just a little bit. Now imagine that there's a straight line across this, like it's super straight. As much as I push out here, that's how much I'm going to be cutting off. So there we go. I've cut a little bit farther down. See that? I just cut down to here. Push out here. I'll end up cutting a little bit more off. So now I'm starting to get it. See, it's starting to get a little bit flatter. I'm going to do that all the way till I get down to about here, and then I'm going to do the same thing all the way to the back till I get to about here. You don't want to go too far forward, so you're really going to stick with the parameters of your penis here, right here. Now don't with the shaving on the sides, don't go farther than the width of this thing. So you don't want to go any farther than right here, right? So just kind of imagine a line all the way down. You can even use like a pencil and just mark the side. Don't go past that because you'll end up making the thing just too weak. So don't do that. On the sides here, don't go past, if you're looking straight down the shaft, don't go past maybe the thickest part of the base. So if the base is right here, this is the thickest part of the base. See that? Don't go past that much of the thickness, because you're going to be end up with pretty much right where this flat part is. That's almost where your the thickest part of your base is. You really just want to take off the excess thickness on the outside that kind of bulges out, right? You want to almost make the thickest part of this base and the inner part of this thing match up. You're really just taking out that bulge there. See that? That's what I ended up doing. That's the way that I kept it from being too thin and too floppy and not having enough weight on the back. It does take off some of the weight from the back. So you really need a good harness. If you don't have the D-slang, that's what really works for this kind of cut that I'm doing. I would suggest definitely doing that. Now I'm gonna go and get to work on this guy, and maybe I can speed up this in the video. I'm not sure if I can edit that. I'm sure I can figure it out though. So I'm just like I had here. I'm just gonna continue this way and this way, and then I'll show you guys when I'm done. Okay, here we have it. You see how much more flat it is down the side here from, well, you can see it from this way. See that? It's very flat across here. There's a little bit of a bulge right here at the base where I said that it's the thickest part, and you don't want to make it get any thinner than that. It's maybe like right where it starts to connect, like right about there. You really don't want to go past the thickness of that area, otherwise you're going to just lose too much of it. So right about here, I just kind of flattened it all the way down, right? Ignore this cut, we'll work with that in a minute. but this is the way that I did it. I ended up doing the sides first. So if you look at it this way, see, it still has a good amount of thickness here. You don't want to kill too much of that thickness because you need that for the stability. But at least now your legs can press against this and you're not going to end up collapsing the thing too much. See, it's still flexible, into maybe more flexible than this side, but it still has some stability, and that's really important. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this other side exactly how I cut this side, and then I'll show you guys how to do the nice curve here and make this one first cut that I already showed you guys, how to make that cut kind of taper off. And you're going to use a really similar style to how you did one cut here and then slowly worked off of that cut going up, then down one side and then down the other side. And I pretty much stopped, as you can see, pretty much stopped right here at the end, and I just tapered off this corner so I didn't have a jagged, like, you know, chopped almost square corner. So I just curved out that area right there, and I'm not going to touch this part until I'm pretty much done with everything else. I'm just going to cut from like maybe 1/4 of an inch here down into it so that I end up losing a little bit of this thickness here so that it lays against the skin a little bit better once you have this curve. Because once you have that curve, you're going to end up with a lot of bulk here, and cutting that bulk down without losing your stability is kind of the hard part. So the inside here is kind of where you're going to take that from. You don't want to cut any of the outside here because you need that for the, you know, for something to hold on to it when it's in the D-slang or whatever harness you're using. So let me do the next side, and then I'll show you guys how it looks. As I said, guys, because this is not centered here, since this was that clearance item, you're going to have a lot of more thickness in the way that you're seeing this right now, and there's a little bit less thickness here than the way you're seeing it. But again, here's how it should look. Now, my lighting is really terrible, so let me see if I can maybe improve that somehow. Maybe this will work. This is really so terrible. Didn't work. Okay, here, that's a little bit better. Sort of. So, as you can see, there's some like consistency here all the way down, consistency on both sides. And really, the consistency comes almost all the way down here. Now, here's how it looks from the other side. Right, so the balls are nice and even all the way down. Pretty much from the shaft to the bottom of the balls, it's like really straight on both sides. This thing is not going to get quite there because, see, it's really heavy. Well, I guess you can't tell from here. You can tell from the back here. So you can still, what I'm going to do is I'm going to taper this off a bit more so that at least when I'm peeing with it, it's going to be a little bit more centered. But I wouldn't suggest that with your own piece. Maybe right here you could take off a little bit more if you want to. But like I said, try not to take off too much of the outside because you really need a lot of that for the stability of this thing sitting in a harness correctly. But you see how much I took off of the side here? Almost completely level. Same thing on this side. You're going to see I took off quite a bit here and made it really flat. See? Okay. Trying to get this from like all lighting points of view so you can see. Now what you may want to do is kind of taper this off a little bit. I haven't done that. That's really more cosmetic. It doesn't matter if you do or not. Like these little more sharp edges from where I tapered it off, it's like all tapered flat. And now it's all rounded up here. On my own piece, I didn't taper it too much, but I did some smaller cut lines right around here, so you can't, there's not much of a line as there was on the other one. It's very soft looking. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to do this, right? Like I said, it's very similar to making one good cut and finding kind of your center of where you're going to start working. So like the center would sort of be right about here for the side when I was doing the side. One good cut here, and then just kind of like started moving upwards and started moving out and cutting off more till I got to the end. So you end up sort of with this like slope down and gets higher right about here, and then it slopes down, stops here, right? Same idea. You cut your biggest cut like right where your lowest point's going to be, and then you slowly work yourself up, sort of work yourself up and stop about right there. And then the same thing in the center here. You cut one good sized piece and then start kind of smoothing it out on the way out, smooth it out on the way to the sides. So you don't want to do too much. Again, don't even make your first cut really deep or anything. It's better to make it less than more in this case. So I've already got my first cut here. Now all I'm going to do, and this one actually is quite deep, so all I really need to do is just level it out here and kind of take off that piece right there. And I want to see this come from here kind of all the way up to about there. So I have some work to do on this guy. The way I'm going to do that is kind of push this up and find my almost end point. I don't want to go straight for the end point of where I'm stopping, like all the way out here. I want to go more for like right in here, because I just don't want to cut too much, right? So I'm going to push this stuff up until almost the bottom of this is level. So almost the bottom, this is the lowest point. So I'm going to go for like here to maybe here and take out another big piece and then kind of just smooth out those points, because I just don't want to take out too much. So I'm going to go to the center of that big part, and I'm going to push up with my thumb here, pop it up there, make sort of a straight line there. Alright, see? And I'm starting to get my line there. See, this is what I was going for. I didn't want to go below my deepest point. I've just kind of met up with it over here on this side, and you can actually see very well, but this is a little bit higher than that part. I'm just going to do one good cut here and smooth that out. Then I'm going to do the same thing up here, one little cut there and smooth that out. And then I'll have a nice curve there. So I'm just going to bring this down, pretty much make the whole thing level, because I don't really need to push up here. Maybe just hold it for stability. For these little cuts, you really don't need to do too much. You just kind of make it flat and then cut right across the flat top surface here. Right, and pull out maybe on these parts so you don't end up just clipping it with the very tip of your scissors. Lay it flat, get it right in the V there, pull this back, go ahead and cut one soft cut there, and so starting to get something more smooth, right? Now all those little jagged pieces that you're just not going to get perfectly off, little tiny cuts here and there, you know, even with the tip of your scissors, those will work out just fine. You just don't want to do too much, because as soon as you do too much, you're gonna kind of regret it. So same thing up here. I'm gonna just pull it back a little bit and start just a little bit farther back. You see that? Just a little bit farther back. This is where the flat part is here. So I'm going to put my scissors like right in there. So I'm only cutting off a little bit and just go down so it tapers a little bit more. And then I'll smooth out these little side pieces to see how much nicer that curve got to be. I'm trying to pull down the back without, there you go. See, now I'm starting to get my curve there. And then once you have a nice good curve in there, just go around and kind of snip off those little bits here and there that make it not so smooth. Smooth out your edges, and don't do any more of those big cuts. And once you're done, because it's super easy to cut too much. That's why I keep saying that. Accidentally made one cut actually that ended up being way too much on accident when I first started with the other one, but I ended up making it work out. But that was just lucky that I was able to make it work out. But you want to really avoid that as much as you can. Okay, so let's imagine that this is done and this side is already done. We're pretty much there. Just need to kind of smooth this out, make her a little bit smoother on the inside part of this, because you can see it's a little bit jagged. I want to smooth that out. I'll do that later, no big deal. And then I would want to smooth this out a little bit too, but this is about where you want to stop. See, you want to stop right about here, so I have a little bit of wiggle space there, a little bit of that flat part there, in order to work with smoothing out the lines over the top, because I don't want to end up going overboard and in order to smooth out those sides. So once you have those two sides, the two sides done, you want to do a little bit here and a little bit here, if that fits for your body. So this is the time when you're doing these cuts to keep trying it on, keep making sure it fits you, or like, you know, take out a little bit more higher up or lower down or wherever you need it to be. That's when you want to be trying this on a lot to make sure that these are all working out for you. You could also do that when you're taking off the sides, but in general, I mean, really this is probably going to work for most people to just make it pretty much flat from the lowest point on this guy, so like right about there. Flattening all that out, it's probably going to be just fine for everybody, right? So what I did for this piece, this part is a little bit funkier. You gotta push up with your thumb right in the center there, like that, and do the same thing you did earlier with the other stuff. It's just you gotta kind of like finagle this thing to really be in the right position for you. I actually kind of just mess with it until I can find a point that I'm happy with. Push up underneath, make one cut down into it this way, and then kind of do some snips on each side. And that's pretty much it. And then you end up with, once you've cleaned it up a little bit, looking like this guy. And that is how I did it, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. Try to get back to you pretty quickly. You can always just message me on Facebook, though. Alright, see you later.